Julius is a data storage technical trainer at SpectraLogic and enjoys long walks on the beach. He just did this.
Sounds like Match.com.
That's what you get. Yeah.
Song and this point in time, margaritas and all.
The joke is there's no beach. We're in Colorado. The name of his speech is Carmen Ghia. Julius Howlett, Carmen Ghia.
Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. In 1952, the world lost a great man. Wilhelm Carmen owned a company by the same name, rather narcissistically named in 1901, and he died, and his very promising engineering son, also by the name of Wilhelm Carmen, took over the company. In the 1950s, the world was recovering from World War II, and people had a lot of disposable income. They thought, wouldn't it be fun to stop buying ugly cars that were made by Volkswagen and buy cool cars like Corvettes and Thunderbirds? And our rather young, promising engineer, Mr. Carmen, had the vision of redefining what Volkswagen would offer. He thought, we have a horrible engine, but there's one thing that we have control over, and that is the design, the overall look of our car. So he had his good buddy, Luigi Segre, come up with a really cool idea, and that was to make a sporty car. Not something that would beat a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or even a Porsche, but something that looked like one, but came at the price tag of an ordinary ugly car like a Beetle or a Volkswagen van. We all agree that Beetles and vans are pretty ugly, right? Yes, good. So, I know there's a few fans out there. Sorry to poke fun at you. So, in 1953, he created a prototype built on a Volkswagen Beetle chassis. It was a unibody, English pewter welded, beautiful, elegant car. And hence, since the design firm that Luigi worked for was called Ghia, the Carmen Ghia was born. A beautiful, elegant car with beautiful design, sleek curves, once again an expensive to make unibody, which I have found out in recent months is quite a rust bucket as well. So, in the first year that it was released in Europe, they sold about 10,000 units. An amazing response, an unprecedented response. So they made a whole bunch more, and they released it to the United States market and sold twice that many the next year. And then at its peak in the 1960s, they sold up to about 33,000 units a year. But alas, in 1970, our National Highway Transportation Safety Administration came up with all sorts of interesting design additions to this car. That made it into sort of the ugly counterpart that we all know. And they made basically bumpers that were big and bulky and ugly, and they had these lights that were hideous. Sadly, the beauty that was initially created in 1953 diminished a little bit, and they replaced the line with an even more abominable design called the Sirocco. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this before, but it looks just like a Golf or a Pacer. It's a hideous car. And I don't even want to talk about it. So over the span of about 20 years, they made about 400,000 cars. If you don't even count the ones that were made in Brazil, which were never exported, so we don't even count them. But 400,000 Carmen Ghias were made. And maybe about 5 or 6 exist today, because they all rusted away. Now, that segues into a rather harebrained purchase I made about 2 months ago. I bought a 1973, built in February, the exact same month I was born, Carmen Ghia. And I have gone through all sorts of fun things, such as going through the paperwork of finding a bonded title, as the original title is no longer existing. Arizona's already replied to me and saying, this isn't your car. So that should be lots of fun. And of course, it's a very simple car. If anybody's ever seen Cars 2, you know that the passphrase was, Carmen Ghia has no radiator. To which the reply is, that's because they're air-cooled. And that makes them a very, very simple car to tear down, completely down to nothing. So I've torn off all the electrical, all the dials, steering wheel, the entire system, and ripped off the body off the entire chassis, which kind of puts me in the hole for about $10,000 worth of repairs. But you could probably sell them for about $9,000 in immaculate condition, so totally worth it. Here's a decal. As indicated, the manufacturer has a beautiful bold text in Carmen, our friendly Germans, who are basically refine the entire manufacturing process. And then you have a beautiful Ghia in nice italics, indicating the beautiful stylistic nature of its Italian designer. And good luck finding a manual that doesn't also feature that hideous thing right here. See, this is for Carmen Ghia, but they also throw in the beehole. It seems like Carmen Ghia is almost like a afterthought compared to its Ghia counterpart. And finally, if you ever want to buy parts, they are readily available at exorbitantly expensive costs. So, good luck. Now, you may think that this was, in fact, harebrained. Perhaps it was. And I really enjoy putting it together, though. And even though this may be a fool's errand to restore this rather beautiful vehicle, I personally wouldn't have it any other way. Mr. Toastmaster.